Inside the Arena is presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sportsbook.
Welcome to Inside the Arena, your source for everything off the ice, off the court, and outside the field of play. With your hosts, KOMO Sports Director Niko and KOMO Senior Reporter Chris Daniels.
66 straight weeks.
Wow. How about that?
Joe DiMaggio only had 56 straight weeks.
Straight games. Yeah. Wow. That is a long time. Wait till we get to 100.
That's going to be something. We're going to have like an in-studio party.
But yeah, with like our favorite guests, like, Beth Knox's the world, a big pizza party in here. We'll have a good old time.
Bill Fesh will play pickleball live on the air.
He's got a nasty spin he puts on that thing, man.
He does. Bill, I thought of you the other day when I was in the store and they were selling a new snack item called pickle balls.
Oh, he brought them to the pickleball, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
That was you that brought those, right?
My goodness, yes. Bill, who's he doesn't like to share his voice with our listeners.
Yeah. No, yeah, Bill brought those to the tournament, the KOMO-wide tournament that's been going on the entire calendar year.
Well, there you go. Bill's ahead of the curve. You know who does like to talk? Spencer Haywood.
Yeah, this is a great interview.
The Hall of Famer, the former Sonic, Spencer Haywood goes inside the arena. He is talking once again to lawmakers in D.C. Of course, he's got this great backstory. People that have been around Seattle for a long time know he went to the Supreme Court, won his case to play for the Sonics, and really was the man who paved the way for all of these other players to leave college early or go into the pros early. Spencer Haywood talks about that, talks about what he's up to now, why he is back talking once again to lawmakers in D.C. You're going to hear Spencer coming up a little bit later in the big show.
Can't wait.
But first, what do we like to do every week?
Touch them all.
We like to touch them all. Four corners. What's good? What's bad? Off the ice, off the court, off the field of play. Niko, what do you like?
Yeah, well, we both like what you're going to talk about, so we'll get to that in a minute. But I like that, hey, football's back. American football is back. It's just a fun time of year when you know that every weekend, every Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, you're going to have hopefully the Seahawks, the Huskies, and Cougs all getting wins. And, there's something that feels right about seeing all those teams in action. And I've said it before, this is one of my favorite times of the year in Seattle sports. You have a playoff push for a lot of our teams, more on that in a minute. You have several teams starting their season. And, by the end of September, you'll have the Kraken in training camp, in addition to all the teams that already are playing. So it's a great time of year, but football is back. And Lumen Field, it's going to be special to see what goes on there, especially as you're going to talk about the atmosphere we saw last Sunday. It kind of got my juices flowing. Wait, we're going to see this every week, just about every week anyway, until we get to January or so. So I'm looking forward to that.
And I'm looking forward to maybe the Cougs having some better offensive skill, because
that was an ugly game in every way.
A win is a win, but that was not what was expected in week one from the Washington State Cougars and the almost entirely new roster and head coach. And obviously that is a situation, unlike the Huskies, who, by the way, look good. That is a situation where, and by the way, with the Huskies, had a pretty good crowd without school in session, which has always been an issue. The Cougs had a good crowd for Idaho, but on the field, everything is under a microscope because of what's happening off the field and with Pac-12 and with TV rights. A 13-10 win that came down to the wire against Idaho didn't really get the fan base excited.
Well, that's the thing. Everybody, like you said, has the microscope. Well, Washington State fans complaining that they were left behind in the power conferences, this, that, and the other thing, and you can stand on that when you're beating the Wisconsins of the world and you're starting out 5-0, whatever it is. And maybe they still do that.
Yeah.
But going down to the wire with Idaho, if you're somebody who isn't really paying attention, just sees a scroll on ESPN or something, you're like, well, that's why they got left behind. And certainly that's not accurate. So hopefully they can get it going. Tough schedules, a weird schedule going all over the country for those guys. It'll be fun.
They are the Washington State University Barnstormers in 2025.
Yeah, at James Madison, at Virginia, at Ole Miss. My goodness, it's going to be weird.
Ole Miss and Virginia back-to-back weeks, by the way. That's not going to be fun.
Virginia, they can get Virginia. I think they can.
Yeah.
Ole Miss, that's a different animal.
Yeah, different animal. You know what? This deserves some extra applause. The Seattle Sounders, 69,000, almost 70,000 fans going into Lumen Field for the League's Cup, for really a cup that not a lot of Sounders fans had been paying attention to as it had been going on up until Lionel Messi comes to town with Inter Miami. What a great crowd. It was a great atmosphere. It was a great advertisement once again for the Sounders, as we've talked about on this show, who have seen attendance dwindle down ever so slightly over the last 5 years, post-pandemic, to really get a shot in the arm here to show off really not only the team, but the young guys. These were the young guys who have come up through the academy. A lot of the players on Sunday against Inter Miami with that 3-0 victory.
Yeah, that's what's really special about it is that, well, first of all, it's special in general. But you're seeing guys like Osase Di Rosario score the goal. I mean, you're seeing all these guys that if you haven't paid attention in recent years, like, who is that? I mean, my favorite part about this was Brian Schmetzer calling his shot earlier in the week. Yeah, sure, Messi is arguably the best player the world has ever seen, but we got Paul Rothrock, and he named about 7 other guys. Yeah. And sure enough, it's Rothrock with the icing goal. That was my favorite part. And that's what Brian Schmetzer is, the most underrated coach I've ever seen.
Yes.
I know Sounders fans appreciate him, but outside of that, even a casual sports fan in Seattle may not be aware of who he is or everything that he's doing. But you look at that trophy case that has happened during Schmetzer's tenure, even just as head coach. It's remarkable and it's incredible to see. And I'm just so excited to see, 2026 was going to be the soccer summer. Well, 2025 has certainly been that, between the FIFA Club World Cup and now this League's Cup. And I love the fact that heading into it, Messi was the story, right?
Yeah.
He was an afterthought when the match was over, right?
Yeah.
Between the skirmish, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And the Sounders just thoroughly dominating Inter Miami. Hey, look out for that rematch in a week or so, too. That's going to be fun down in Miami. But boy, what a moment. That was one of the most fun things to cover, no question.
Schmetzer, I mean, I put it out there on the platform formerly known as Twitter. Where does Schmetzer rank amongst all-time Seattle coaches? I think he is in rarefied air. You put him on the same level with Lenny Wilkins in terms of a guy who has done a lot in the community, grew up here, coached for the lower and played for the lower league Sounders, ASL, or yes, USL, and now having this great success as the coach of the Sounders FC, of Major League Soccer. And it's hard to compare his story to any other coach in Seattle history, recent Seattle history at least. And he just continues to win with different players. And this was a case where he's going up against the vaunted Inter Miami stars, people that a lot of the players on Seattle's squad had grown up watching.
Right.
And a bunch of guys who had come up through the academy system, and he still found a way to dominate that game. I mean, the numbers I don't think really tell the story in terms of possession. The Sounders were winning a lot of the 50-50 balls in that game, and I think looked like the better squad and outclassed Miami.
I think to continue on the point about Schmetzer, I think you look at this, I mean, again, there's been a lot of great coaches in Seattle sports history, but when you're talking about the success on and off the field, I mean, I put him with Pete. I put him with, you said, with Lenny Wilkins, put him with Don James or whoever else you want to bring up in this regard. It's remarkable. And another part that I really like about this is the tear the Sounders have been on since the FIFA Club World Cup finished. And I know they didn't win a game in that event, but something clicked. They weren't run off the field by even PSG or, Atletico, any of these guys. And I think Brian has used that as like, you guys are right there. And we've seen it ever since. There was that long stretch. They didn't lose any matches. They had a couple draws, but then to do what they did in the League's Cup, not just beating Messi, but beating Cruz Azul 7-0, and that sort of thing. I think we're in for something special this fall. I don't want to jinx anything, but this team is rolling and they've got the right man at the wheel for, as they've had for so many years.
And from a business perspective, a shot in the arm. They just introduced probably 40,000 people who had not been to a game all year to top class soccer That is going to help with merchandise sales. That is going to help just getting people back in the building for the remainder of the regular season.
Yeah, that's just it. Reintroducing people. At the same time, merch sales, they've got some pretty awesome logos too. I like the orca, with the tail. Like, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
I bought my wife 2 sweatshirts with that on it. Not going to lie to you.
Well, what don't you like this week?
Well, it goes a couple ways. And I'm going to talk about the Mariners in general. You could say the recent stretch leading up to this recording would be something like, oh, well, this is what you're going to talk about negative. My point in all of this, and I think I've made this point on this show before, is how we just snap jump to conclusions. I mean, so many people were saying the season was over when they got swept by like the Giants in April and Robles got hurt. Then people were saying, well, it's 100% they're going to be in the playoffs when they win 8 in a row. Then they lose 5. Like, baseball is so different than any other sport. 162 games is nearly double, the next longest of the major sports. When you talk about hockey and the NBA being 82, right? There's going to be things like this. And here's the thing. Again, heading into this recording, they've lost a bunch of games, but guess what? They're still in a playoff spot.
Yeah.
Now, the grip on that is a couple games less than what it was a week ago. But just hang on. You just got to let it play out. And anytime there's an influx of things, it takes a second. Like, they made the trades for Suarez and Naylor, not the Suarez you're going to talk about, but and then they took a few days and then they got rolling. Well, now we have September call-ups and there's going to be inevitably new guys, getting at-bats and things of that sort. It's going to take a second. These are things that just take a minute. And I'm not here to say I guarantee they're going to the playoffs. I'm not here to say they're going to the World Series. Of course not. I'm just saying, baseball, you got to chill. You got to chill out. It's such a long season that it just, you cannot get freaked out about a 5-game stretch or even a 10-game stretch. Now, listen, if you have a 5-game lead going into that 10-game stretch, you lose them all and you get knocked out, totally fine. But I'm just saying, hang on.
What's wild is how poorly they've been playing on the road.
Yeah, you know what? And it's funny because some recently Seattle teams have played much better on the road. And you're like, well, what's gives with that? Now it's the it's the opposite. It's almost what you'd expect, but for a team that you've got guys who always seem to be able to find ways to get hits, like Naylor and Cal Rowley especially, and it hasn't been happening to the extent that fans would want or expect. So hopefully they figure it out. And listen, Houston's still within reach, so we'll see what happens.
Well, I'll talk about that other Suarez as we bring
Not
it home.
Gino.
What an ugly scene that did happen on the field, but off the field, a lot of people were talking about it. And that's Luis Suarez, who seemed to be the instigator in a fight with the Sounders players immediately after the final whistle. A melee. I was there live, as were you. A little difficult to see what was going on from higher up in the stands, but all the replays showed, and there were multiple angles from viewers as well, that Suarez spit at a longtime Sounders official, the head of security, who has been with the franchise since 2009, is a former Seattle homicide cop who is trying to break up the melee. And according to the video, you can see it clearly on the video, it looks like Suarez stepped on his foot, leaned in, and spit in his face. There's been outrage around the world because Luis Suarez has been widely regarded as one of the best forwards in professional soccer. He's also known for biting his opponents, including in the World Cup, that led to a 4-month suspension at that time. This was a marquee event for Major League Soccer, for Liga as well, and a lot of people saw it all over North America. It was replayed in Europe as well, and people were like, here we go again with Suarez. How long is that suspension going to be? And there's a question right now if because this was in the League's Cup versus the MLS, if he is going to get suspended, will he be suspended for that Sounders matchup that you talked about coming up later in September? But just an ugly scene, and it seemed to mar the victory celebration. And Brian Schmetzer, even talked about it, that the focus needs to be on what the young kids playing for the Sounders did. But that was one of the things that was so troubling about this too, is Suarez and Sergio are taking on a bunch of 20-year-olds and 19-year-olds who grew up watching them. How weird must that have been as well? Yeah, because again, they're these guys that they grew up watching, and they act like that after. And that's the spitting was the ugliest part about that.
Well, let's not forget it really started with the poor sportsmanship of, Obed celebrating, then gets put in a hemlock.
Yeah.
And throw like because you're just mad that you lost.
Yeah.
For these guys that have achieved it all, and Messi stayed clear of the fray, thank goodness. You had a great shot of that. But it's just, it's funny. I hate the comment section of anything online, but if you read the comments and all this, it's like, oh, there goes Inter Miami going, oh, there goes Suarez. Like, it's almost like it's expected. And it's like, guys, these are world-class players that the MLS is lucky in a lot of ways to have as far as a talent level is concerned, but then you act like that and it just ruins the whole thing.
A great shot that, yes, was ripped off by a bunch of people online, and I know who you are, and I am taking notes. Thanks, though, for the people who did give me credit on that, by the way. Hey, we're going to get Spencer Haywood in just a second. First, Supersonic Minute. There is a little bit of news. Mark Cuban. We know him as we
love Mark Cuban,
now former majority owner of the Dallas Mavericks. And
big supporter of the Sonics.
It has been in the past.
Oh.
Yes, he did vote to not relocate the franchise to Oklahoma City. He voted for the relocation of the Sacramento Kings to Seattle. So he has been a supporter. But he certainly does not sound like a supporter of expansion. He made some new comments, which are going to be a lot like his old comments to a Dallas-based podcast talking about the sale of that franchise, how he gave up majority ownership and day-to-day operation of it. And he was asked about expansion. I want to read those comments that have been attributed to Mark Cuban, who basically is downplaying the idea that expansion is going to happen anytime soon. He says, and I'm quoting now, the expansion fee is just a loan. You loan me, let's say, $6 billion, and I pay back that loan. I give you 1/31st because there's 30 teams now, so there'll be 31. I get 1/31st of the TV money, and then it's only a question of how long it takes. So if the TV money, let's just say, make it an easy number, is $100 million, and it's $6 billion, so that means it's in 60 years the loan will be paid off with no interest. So why split up the pie any further? He goes on to say, part two of that is when you calculate the CBA, when you calculate the cap, now you're divided by 32 teams. So now if that cap is $170 million, but the basketball-related income hasn't really increased by the team that you added. So now it's one or two teams, you're reducing the cap. So literally, in a second apron era, the cap goes down and the second apron goes down, and teams are, it's a word beginning with F. It just doesn't work, he explained. So think about it. If you're a player, now all of a sudden you're a max player, and because they added two expansion teams, there's just not as much money to go around to the players. So the players would have to decide, do we want to take less money in cap room, or do we want extra jobs? That's Mark Cuban, who, as you noted, used to be a fan of moving a team to Seattle. Apparently not a fan of expansion, and that's after he gave up most, if not all, of the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, well, and we have talked about that same idea on this show. He kind of got a little more involved with it from his past ownership perspective, but that is the holdup right now, right? Because everybody said this is a slam dunk. The NBA needs to be in Seattle, and it does need to be in Vegas too, sure, but it seems as if, probably led by Jim Dolan, the owners have wisened up to this, right? Like they've started to realize, well, hang on a second here. Everybody might lose a little money. Now, I think that's probably a little bit short-sighted, right? Because then, you're talking about the current CBA. You're talking about the initial influx from the expansion fee. But in reality, the long-term growth, which I think is what Adam Silver sees by adding two teams in markets, is better for long-term growth.
Yeah.
But the point is there, and it's a valid one. I just think it's probably, I never owned an NBA team, but it's probably, and it's not my money. So from the outside, I can say, yeah, it's probably a little short-sighted.
Well, I tell you one guy who does want to be in Seattle, and his name is Spencer Haywood, the Hall of Famer, who really put Seattle on the map with the Sonics. He's now back talking to members of Congress, talking about his story, and you're going to hear him step inside the arena right after this.
Luxury has arrived at Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel. The hotel is officially open. Book now for an unforgettable experience. Enjoy sweeping cascade views, a new sports bar, and play your favorite games. Visit snowcasino.com for details. Seattle's closest is now Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel.
All right, the great Spencer Haywood, the Hall of Famer. The man, the myth, the legend, wearing a shirt even that says legend. Thank you for joining us on Inside the Arena. How are you? Where are you?
I'm in Detroit, Michigan. I have been here because we have a mayoral candidate that I like, and some of the other NBA players like as well. Her name is Mary Sheffield. She's running to become the first Black female mayor of Detroit. And we have had a white mayor here in Detroit that has done some incredible things for the city, but he's moving on for the governor's race. So we're trying to see what we can do to keep this momentum going.
I know that we had a chance to visit in Las Vegas in July, but I want to get people up to speed who are in Western Washington, in Seattle, about your journey and what it's been like going from Mississippi to Detroit to the ABA to Seattle, now Vegas. It's been quite an extraordinary journey. The stuff that books and movies are written about. How did this all begin, this journey to Seattle for you?
That journey began in a place called Silver City, Mississippi. It ain't no silver, ain't no city. Just cotton fields, population 375 people, not 75,000, but 375 people in the cotton fields of Mississippi. And from there, I was fortunate enough to leave the cotton field and go to Detroit, where I met this fabulous coach and a great family, and they took me in and raised me, educated me, re-educated me again. And this was at the age of 15, and we wanted to win the Class A state championship for the city of Detroit. And we were able to do it in 1967, the first time in the city of Detroit had won it in 35 years. So from there, I moved from there. I signed with the University of Tennessee out of high school as the #1 player because I wanted to let my mother see me play in Mississippi and play against Mississippi State in the University of Mississippi. But it wasn't to happen because it was too early in this country, because we had just saw Kentucky lose to 5 blacks against Texas Western. So what's his name? The great coach from Kentucky, Hank Iber. No, Hank. Yeah. Was it Hank? No, Hank Iber was the Olympic coach. What's the coach at Kentucky? Adolph Rupp.
Yeah.
Adolph Rupp was promised that the first Black great athlete to come to the Southeastern Conference he would have that first pick. And so I was just caught between a rock and a hard place. So I decided, well, let me go to a junior college nearby and then come back at my junior year as my sophomore year. And lo and behold, Will Robinson sent me to Albuquerque, New Mexico. It said it's close to Albuquerque and it's close to Denver. By the way, it was 360 miles from Denver, 420 miles from Albuquerque. I was out in no man's land at Trinidad State Junior College. Now, lucky enough, we can say it's spiritual, whatever, but at that time, the '68 Olympics were rolling around, and Kareem boycotted the '68 Olympics. So did Wes Unseld, Elvin Hayes, by signing their professional contract. And then they invited me down just to fill the rosters for the tryouts. And I turned that stuff out, Chris. I laid it on them. And then Hank Iver, the coach of the Olympic team in 1968, said, I want this boy real bad. and he was cutting the team down, and I was like, he cut Pistol Pete Maravich. I was like, whoa. He cut Calvin Murphy. What? He cut Rick Mount. What are you doing? And he brought on JoJo White, Charlie Scott, Mike Silliman, and we had a real dynamic team. We wasn't supposed to win that year, the Olympics, but we did knock off Yugoslavia, who knocked off Russia, and we won the gold medal. And there was a lot of turmoil at that '68 Olympics when Tommy Smith and John Carlos put the black glove up, and they escorted them out of the arena and everything, and off the grounds in which the Olympics were on. So it was just a magical time, but a scary time as well. And from there, I migrated back to Detroit because we had just had riots in Detroit, and the city Mayor Kavanaugh and Governor Romney, not that Romney, but his dad was the governor of Michigan. They wanted me to come back home and try to see if we can revitalize the city. So I signed with the University of Detroit with the hopes of bringing Will Robertson back as the coach, because he was the number one high school coach in the country. And they knew that he was looking to become the first black coach in Division I. And so they reneged on the deal, and he went to Illinois State, and they got Doug Collins and those guys, So right away, I was disgusted, and I wanted to just go play pro. And also, my mother was still picking cotton in Silver City, Mississippi for $2 a day. So I signed with the Denver Rockets of the ABA, the first underclassman to sign with such a pro team. Had a lot of commotion and everything else, and it was just the idea, if he could get 10 points maybe and 7 rebounds, this gamut would work. We could then usurp the draft for the NBA, and we can get all of the young guys. So that year, Chris, I bust out 30 points, 19.5 rebounds, which is basically 20. And I was the Rookie of the Year, MVP of the league, MVP of the All-Star game. And there's one other player that's done that in the history of basketball. That's Wilt Chamberlain.
Dominant.
Yes.
And
I was 19.
And then Sam Schulman gets into the picture. How did that all happen?
How that happened was the ABA gave me a fraudulent contract, and Sam Schulman, the Seattle Supersonics, and the Phoenix Suns were the 2 expansion teams in the NBA. And so Sam Schulman had the idea that if we don't go after the ABA players, and we were raiding the NBA because we had got Rick Barry, we had got Joe Caldwell, we had went into the NBA and grabbed a lot of players. He felt that we should do this to the ABA. So the next play was Jerry Colangelo, who owned the Phoenix Suns. He grabbed Connie Hawkins from the Pittsburgh Pipers. He was the MVP before me. And then I came up, and Sam was like, wait a minute now. He's an underclassman still. He got 1 more year left. Geez, what am I going to do? Lenny, what are we going to do? And Lenny said, let's sign him. Let's go for it, Sam. We can set him out for this year, and then hopefully we can grab him in the draft if he go into the draft. But if we sign him, maybe we got a good chance to hold on to him. And Sam says, but I'm on a plan. I was like, oh, great. I'm getting paid. And then you want to play me too? And you're going to put the lawsuit as well? And so that's how that case started. And we started out in the lower courts because the NBA got an injunction to stop me from playing in the first 10 games. And then I got an injunction to play in the next 10 games. And they would call me all kinds of names, throw things on the floor and do all kinds of stuff. Poor Rick Welch, he was like so nervous. He was the ball boy. And now he's the big executive.
And David Stern was the attorney for the NBA, was he not?
Yes, yeah. The general counsel. Yeah.
So you had told me when you were in Las Vegas that when Sam Schulman first brought you to Seattle flying into Boeing Field, you immediately fell in love with the city. Yeah,
because I said to Sam, it was my first private plane anyway, private jet. So, and he circled around the city. I said, my God, Sam, this is like a postcard. And so we landed, and it was just a beautiful day in Seattle. And every day was beautiful to me because I'm coming from the snow. So, it's like, oh, this is great. You mean you got a little drippy rain? Oh, beautiful. I don't have to wash my car. So.
And so you're going through this court battle and trying to figure out if you can play, and you can't play right away, right, for the Sonics?
No, I couldn't play, and then we would get an injunction to play. Then they would throw me out. They threw me out in the snow in Cincinnati. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an illegal player on the floor, and today that illegal player, Haywood, must be off the grounds in which this arena sat on, out into the snow. Didn't get a chance to change. And the next 10 days I stayed. And then I came back to the next 10 games, and the great Chicago Bulls, Jordan and all of them, they threw a lawsuit on me for $600,000 because Chet Walker was on the other end warming up, and I was warming up. He faked an injury so they could sue me in Sam. So they sued me for another one. So the case maneuvered its way all the way to the Supreme Court, where we had another Washingtonian on that Supreme Court, Justice O. Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Thurgood Marshall. And they were so pro Spencer Haywood that I was like, I think I'm going to win this thing. And so they looked at, under the Sherman Antitrust Act, that you can't stop an American from making a living. And they gave an example. All right, tennis, you can go in and make money as a pro at a young age. Baseball, hockey, all of the other sports that are non-revenue sports in college. But the two revenue sports, which was basketball and football, you have to stay because we're going to make this money. And so they brought that case to the front, and they talked about it, and that's what I won the case on the Sherman Antitrust Act. And thank you, Lenny.
I'm sorry?
I said, thank you, Lenny Wilkins.
Because
I was young, man. I was 20 years old. I'm crying on Lenny. Tom Masheri, who was the associate coach. Rod Thorne was the other associate coach. And my coach, we had Rick Wells, the little kid, at the ball boy. But we took him everywhere we would go, you know, and especially when we was in Seattle. But it was just amazing that we had nobody in a suit. Everybody was in clothing, basketball clothes on that team. 1971, I think. Yeah. Everybody, there was no suit coach. Everybody was a player coach.
To have this group in Seattle, Sam Schulman, the then owner of the Sonics, and Lenny Wilkins, the then coach of the Sonics, to have them behind you all the way to the Supreme Court, I can only imagine gave you a certain perspective on Seattle.
It gave me a very strong perspective on Seattle. And I always wanted to put my family back together. So I invited my sister LeBron to come to Seattle to live with me. And right away, Boeing picked her up, and she started working with Boeing Airlines because, you know, they were closely affiliated with the Sonics at the time. And the same thing with my sister Ivory. She came up and got a job with the city of Seattle. She stayed with the city of Seattle until she passed a couple of years ago. My brother Andrew and Joe, I set them up with a plating company to make bumpers.
In your playing
and my
days,
brother Floyd, he went to Eastern Washington University. So
yeah, you've got all the connections, all the roots, all the family roots. And I've seen people describe and show off your numbers from those days. I've heard one person in particular say the most dominant athlete who played in Seattle at that point in time.
Yeah,
like your numbers.
My numbers still stand.
Yeah.
Even though they took them to Oklahoma City, they still stand because I think Kevin Durant and I are the two leaders. And then, of course, Shea is now pushed us both aside and said, take that back to Seattle.
We're a family show, Spencer.
Okay.
It's okay.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. And you and I talked about this before, that your number was retired in that last season of the Sonics and raised at Key Arena.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was, I guess it was a favor because David Stern knew that they were moving the team, and Clay Bennett knew it. So they brought me in and they retired my jersey, gave me this beautiful golf bag, which I played with, and this is a big Sonic golf bag. It's original. And a Rolex watch and a rocking chair. And I said, man, I told Kevin Durant, I said, man, I can't wait to see you next year, man. I'll be here most of the season. I might take an apartment up here. He was like, yeah, this is going to be fun. So I got up the next year. The team was gone.
Yeah.
I was like, I never saw my jersey. Yeah.
So the big Supreme Court decision goes in your favor. You've told me before it should be a reminder to other athletes, other basketball players that are thinking about one and dones and going into the NBA and going to the G League, that you really kind of you paved the way for them.
I paved the way for the whole organization, because what happened was, before I came along, you had to wait for 4 years after your high school class had graduated before you could come into the NBA. And so my case reversed it all the way back from high school to 4 years. And so the NBA later on got a collective bargaining agreement with the union to say maybe 1 year of college will, 1 year out of college will help us have more maturity on the bench and in the locker room. So they changed it to that. But from that ruling, there's been a number that been thrown out to me by the NBA and other people who were involved with the league, that it's about $65 billion worth of revenue for NBA teams and players, because, you know, we only had 14 teams at that time, and we didn't have a pool in which to pull from in terms of players, because they were staying in college for 4 years. So you didn't have, you know, that number to pull from. And so once we won the case, then we started expanding Buffalo all the way through and everything. And by the way, speaking of Buffalo, the NBA decided, while I'm with Seattle and played all of this season, went to the Supreme Court, we're going to say on the records, and it's still in my record, that Haywood was drafted second round with Buffalo.
You're a Sonic, man.
Yeah, I know, but it's just the idea that we want to throw a little shade on you, dirty you up a little bit more.
Well, and there was a long fight for you too, as well, in terms of getting into the Naismith Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
Olympian, All-Star, MVP, the guy who won the Supreme Court decision. It took a long time for you to get into the Hall of Fame. What was that moment like for you?
it was just so much gratification because of the fact that I had waited 27 years, you know. Seemed like I was like in Mandela. I was like in prison or something, you know. And when it did come, I remember the first year when it happened, when they rejected me, I was so hurt, but I couldn't have came anyway because I had prostate cancer and I had it removed from my body. And then, lo and behold, the next year, David Stern stepped in and made it happen. So I was in the Hall of Fame. I just was posting about my class, because in my class was the great George Raveling, who passed yesterday.
A good
from
man.
Washington State.
Yeah.
Very good man, great man. So it was Dikembe, Lisa Leslie, I don't can't remember all of us, but yeah.
And you were here for Lenny's statue unveiling.
Yeah.
And let me ask you what sounds like a dumb question, Spencer. Are you going to come back if the Sonics are back?
Yeah. Duh.
You got to see that. You got to see that uniform up in the rafters.
I got to see the uniform in the rafters. I want to be a participant. You know, I would love to be there, you know, because that's my home. That's my team, you know. I mean, I'm wearing this Bob Marley stuff here, but that's just in reference to Sean Kemp. It's an inside joke.
We'll
Don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
We'll end it there. I know you got a couple of meetings coming up.
Can you imagine? I am getting ready to go on the call with the Senate and Congress. What kind of person am I? I'm sitting at the seat of government lately.
Well, you're a legend. That's why.
Chris, you're so awesome.
Hey, Spencer, I've enjoyed this. I enjoyed seeing you earlier this year, and hopefully I can see you here in Seattle soon.
Okay, you will. Thank you,
Spencer.
Bye.
So there you have it, Spencer Haywood, and he did make note of it in the last week. George Raveling, the former Washington State University head coach, who meant a lot to people who played with him at Washington State, USC, just a storied career dating back to Martin Luther King, He passed away. He also a Hall of Famer, Naismith Hall of Famer, and Spencer reposted a photo of him standing next to George Raveling and Dikembe Mutombo.
Nice.
Poignant shot there. And thank you, Spencer. Thank you. Appreciate you coming on the show.
That was awesome.
Yes.
And we appreciate David Lee as well.
You've been listening to Inside the Arena with Niko and Chris. Please subscribe on your favorite platform. Until next time.
Inside the Arena was presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sports book.